I don't know how to start these things ever, but here we are for another tutorial video. Today I've kind of come up with a basic list of things that I'd like to cover for the beginning. For starters, the microphone's right here right now. You can see it right there. I did that because the sound quality is so much better when I have it over here. So we'll have to just deal with it being in my face for right now. So I've come up with a few different things that I want to talk about to start. One is going to be line artwork, just what it is. The second one is going to be hand and arm placement, some different tricks as far as that goes. Then basics of making shapes and then filling in said shapes. So just the starts of how to do some of this artwork. So I thought I'd start with basic thoughts of abstract line art. And that's, if I go online and I search that, I'll find some stuff that's very, very similar to what I do. So that's kind of what I've adopted calling it. It can be called many different things. I've heard people say it's abstract fluid art, abstract line art. Line art kind of brings up more tattoo type stuff where it's just inked out black and white and that sort of thing. So that's more or less where I'm coming from. I know that a lot of people call it Zentangle. I don't mind the term, but I don't really like it. Zentangle usually denotes a lot more flowery stuff, and it's a little more kitschy. I think of like, I don't know, like you go to a store, like a local place that sells stuff, and you see these kitschy kind of trinkety things, and I don't really think of what I do as that, but it's technically a variety of that sort of art. So Zentangle is another way to put it. It works. It's fine. Okay, so I came back for a little bit because I feel like I didn't really answer my question as well as I should have. The question is, what is line artwork or line work? To me, at least my interpretation of what line artwork is what I do. It's using lines, a grouping of lines to make up a pattern that has flowing or lovely movements to it, making things look like waves or hair, or I know there's a gal out there that does lots of mountainscapes and backgrounds and such. So to me, it's using lines, simple lines to create flowing organic shapes or landscapes and such. So it's just using simple lines. That's it. In a very, very abstract way to make things pretty. That's my interpretation of it. Alright, so I've decided to do things a little bit different for this tutorial. I want to see all the paper here so that we can really cover some different things. Pardon my hands, they're chapped from the cold and also from work, so we'll just have to look at my poor red chapped hands. But that aside, I'm going to talk about hand placement and arm placement and just how you grip your pen or pencil. Really, it's however is most comfortable for you. I usually go like this. This is the fairly standard way to hold your pencil. I know there's some people out there that do something like that, or even one further down like this. There's just all sorts of interesting ways to hold your pen. But that aside, however's comfortable is good, but we're going to talk about the pinky. So the pinky can be used as a template to draw lines. And usually what I do is I have my hand out and I have my pinky kind of really bracing against the paper so that I can make some of these movements really, really smoothly. I also use my pinky as kind of a template to move around the piece of paper. I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me get this guy out of the way. So if I want to draw an arc along the paper, I usually will be holding my pen and I'm going to just kind of use like this so that you can see my pinky. So I will rotate on my pinky's knuckle as an axis for making some really smooth curved lines. Just like so. I know there's some people that can draw perfect circles by whipping around on that axis, but what I'm doing is just being able to draw that line over again, really, really close. So by using your pinky, you can kind of come up with nice templates for drawing. Kind of like that. So another fun thing is when I'm drawing big lines, lots of coverage, I'm not just using my hand. I get my elbow and my shoulder into things. So if you want, you can, again, I'm using my pinky. If I'm drawing a straight line or trying to draw down the page, I've got my pinky out and the straight, nice bracing arc, and I will go, and this is from the shoulder, I'm pulling down instead of with the hand. And it comes down to really just being able to move your whole body as opposed to just getting into hand movements. Because your wrist can give you some nice movements here and there for different stuff like that. And I wasn't really using my wrist right there, but that's okay. But using your whole arm to make bigger movements is kind of key, because you run out of ability with your hand and your wrist at some point. So you have to be able to get your whole body into moving with the pen stroke. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to talk about is more or less muscle memory. Repetition is going to be key to being able to make shapes, the same shape over and over. And once you make a few million lines, you kind of get the idea of how to be able to make shapes and build off of them. And that's more or less just what this is. This is making muscle memory, training your body to be able to do these things, to make shapes that are aesthetically pleasing to the eye. There's more that obviously that goes into it, but that's personal at that point. So, different pen strokes, like what I just did right there, where I'm drawing away from myself. That is, I generally don't like to do that because you hurt the pen tip more, but drawing towards yourself is going to be the best kind of motion that you can get around. Sometimes at weird angles you'll have to pull away from yourself, and it sometimes can skip across the paper depending on what kind of paper you're using. I usually use very, very smooth vellum. No, vellum is the textured stuff. This is just called smooth. Sometimes it's called plate. If you use plate, that's usually a thicker piece of paper, and it's usually made of cotton, at least from what I've found. So that's usually what I will do is be pulling towards myself on paper. Beyond that, the muscle memory will be key for doing other things as you progress in the genre. I wanted to get just a little bit closer. So now I really want to focus on, this is the number one basic thing that I did starting my line journey. It is making the shapes on the paper first. So I'm going to use this line just as a nice template. So what I would do is I would have my shape on the paper, and then I would start putting other shapes in and around it, or even I'd put another line. Oh, I need to switch this pen tip. Look at that. So that's another thing that can happen. You might not be able to see it, but my pen stroke has decided to split, so this pen tip is starting to wear out. But I would make a shape, so within here I wanted to fill it in, but I needed a little bit more of a guide to start me. So I would make these shapes, and I would always kind of go with, and I still do, I kind of go with one of these pointy shapes, rather than kind of pulling along like this and making more of a rounded shape, which I will still fill in here in a second and just show. But I usually go with more pointed, because then you have a starting point, you have an ending point, and you just have to draw in between. But let's just use some of this as a way to create. This is how I spent most of my time. would be blocking out, and this helps me with my ADHD as well, making big tasks very small. So you start with a shape, and then you make smaller shapes, and now you go back in and fill in these shapes. And this is more or less how ADHD brains function, is starting off with a big task is overwhelming, so we want to make it small tasks and lots of them to make it easier to get through. So now that I have my shape, I'm going to follow this line, and we're going to start filling this in. Something that I have found is that when you have a focal point, which it would be something like this would be a nice focal or focus point, I should say, bringing those lines into that spot is going to really bring out dimension. And sometimes I'll even go on the opposite side. So now I've broken up that one line, that first line that I started with that went all the way through the piece of paper, and now I've made it curved in a spot, so it's no longer a straight line, which I personally like, and it feels right. So right there, I filled in one of those shapes, and it makes me feel pretty good. It's one of those accomplishment moments for the ADHD, bringing those little accomplishments to light. Now I'm going to do it to this one, which I think this is going to feed into that other one. Yep. Make that one shape look much bigger. So now I want to make this over here opposite facing, more or less. So let's do a completely different stroke. So instead of doing more of these lines that kind of curve around, I'm going to go with a U shape like that. This U shape is going to give some stark contrast to the other side. And again, we're still just filling in these shapes, which is going to lend itself nicely to the overall structure. And this gives kind of an upward or dimensional look a little bit. I usually don't like using these. I find that they sometimes are a little abrasive to look at least in my opinion. So, stark contrast to what we drew over here, which is not a bad thing. I would usually switch my pens, but I think I'll just continue using this size of pen. Size, I mean pen stroke. The tip on the pen is a decent size. Filled in another one. So now I have this funky little curve shape right here. I'm going to go around like this, and then I'm going to fill in that circle. Yeah, my pen is scraping on the paper every once in a while, and it makes a noise, so I know that my pen tip is starting to wear out. There, just like that. So now with this pattern going up into this, I can also, and this I find to be more aesthetically pleasing, is to bring this around to a certain point and then start going the other direction to make this weird kind of like eyeball type look. No, this one didn't turn out so good, but you can do stuff like that. If you did that on just a regular shape, can come out a little bit better. I'm tangenting? I'm going off on a tangent. Yeah. But anyway, again, filling in these small shapes is usually how I go about doing all of these. I don't draw myself templates anymore. I go by the seat of my pants because I can kind of see in my mind where I want these drawings to go, and I can build a little bit better and not have as much planning out like this. This looks like muscle to me, which is great. I like that feel. And again, that's all about the muscle memory. And if you notice how my hand is positioned, it doesn't change as I'm going along. So I'm drawing with my elbow and my shoulder rather than drawing with my hand. So I place my hand, I start drawing, and then I freeze my hand and my pinky so I can make that template of a movement. Really just takes a lot of practice as far as that goes. And some people, I've seen some people do really, really shaky, like their hands aren't stable, and so they kind of have a little bit of a wiggle to their lines, which can be kind of fun in the end, because as you go along, you're kind of changing your own pattern and doing some funky stuff, and it can give more of an uncontrolled, more chaotic look, which is great. Usually not my style, but it is a thing that I see people do out there, and it's just following that same template that you've drawn for yourself over and over again, and it can come out pretty fun. Let's do one more. Let's build off of here. Let's draw one off of here. So again, I'm drawing from my shoulder and my elbow, not from my hand. The minor movements I can control with my hand, just to make it go where I want it to go. But in the end, it is my upper arm doing this. And right there, I did a little movement with my hand, and right there is shoulder and arm, and going back down into there with my hand. Same thing, a little tiny movement with my hand, and then shoulder and elbow. I find that I have to breathe a certain way too. I usually, when I'm doing long strokes like that, I hold my breath for just a second. I find that it helps me maintain steady. So talking while I'm doing this is a little strange. But yeah, those minor little hiccups or movements as I was doing things gives you these dimensional spots, which is really what you're looking for when you're doing line artwork, is to make dimension without doing too much beyond your usual pen strokes. So a lot of this is just trial and error. It's not any set or given set of rules. It's not anything that really, I mean, you can be taught some of the basics like what I just did, but from there it's all personal interpretation. I follow so many line artists on Instagram that the general theme is all there, but the broad spectrum of the different creative functions of line work is so diverse. It's amazing. Some people that I follow, they just do a certain, like that U shape that I was talking about. I see that being used in a way that I never thought about using it, and that's all they do is use that one U shape type thing. I see people use watercolors mixed in with their artwork, which is awesome. It gives a really chaotic kind of whimsical approach to it, and then you're putting these lines over top of it, and it can create something very, very structured on top of it, and it makes beautiful artwork. I love it. Me personally, I don't use watercolor. It warps the paper, and I know you can tape down your paper while you do your watercolor and stuff like that to help with that not happening, but I just, it hurts the paper, and it hurts me when I hurt the paper. The paper is like the soul of your drawing, the soul of your piece, and doing anything to really hurt it, put a scratch on it. There's been times when my cats have scratched. They've like tried to jump on my drafting table, which is at an angle, and when they do that, they scratch the paper, and sometimes I'm in the middle of a drawing and I'm like, well, this one's ruined and I have to start over just because I've marked the piece of paper. So really, it's however you take the basic thoughts of all of this, the hand movements, the arm movements, all of that stuff, and apply it towards your personal reflection. It's whatever's going on in here, whatever you're feeling inside that really pushes out whatever kind of artwork you want to have happen. Yeah. So, in the end, I guess it's just all up to the artist.